The United States is moving, and this time, it's different. What started as precision airstrikes, what looked like another controlled escalation, is now evolving into something far more dangerous, something far bigger. Because right now, thousands of elite American troops are on the move toward the Persian Gulf, and all signs are pointing to one chilling possibility: boots on the ground in Iran. This isn't speculation anymore. This isn't just posturing. This is preparation for war at a level we haven't seen in decades. And if it happens, everything changes overnight. Because the United States doesn't move Marines and paratroopers like this unless it's ready to finish something. The 82nd Airborne Division, one of the most elite rapid deployment forces in the world, is already en route. Around 2,000 paratroopers, trained for lightning-fast invasions, ready to drop behind enemy lines within hours. At the same time, U.S. Marine Expeditionary Units are sailing into position. These aren't just any units. These are the tip of the spear. The same forces that led the first wave into Iraq. The same forces that stormed hostile shores in Afghanistan. And now, they're gathering near Iran. Altogether, more than 6,000 highly trained combat troops are being positioned within striking distance. That number alone tells a story. Because this isn't a defensive posture. This isn't a warning. This is a setup. And Iran knows it. That's why something very telling is happening right now. Something that reveals more than any official statement ever could. Iran is scrambling, desperately, across one small but critically important location: Karg Island. This island may look insignificant on a map, but in reality, it's the heart of Iran's survival. Nearly 90% of Iran's oil exports pass through Karg Island. Take it, and you don't just hurt Iran. You choke it. You cut off its lifeline. You bring its economy to its knees. And right now, Iran is turning that island into a fortress. Mines are being planted along the shoreline. Defensive positions are being rebuilt. Troops and air defenses are being rushed in. It's a frantic attempt to prepare for something they believe is coming. An amphibious assault, because if U.S. Marines land there, it's game over for Iran's oil economy. But here's the twist. Karg Island might not even be the main target, because behind the scenes, military analysts are outlining multiple invasion scenarios, and each one is more dangerous than the last. The first possibility skips Karg entirely. Instead, it focuses on the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most critical choke points on Earth. About 20% of the world's oil flows through that narrow stretch of water, and right now, Iran is effectively controlling it. Not with large warships, but with something far more difficult to counter: swarm tactics. Fast attack boats, hidden missile launchers, drones. It's asymmetric warfare, designed to exploit every weakness. And it's working. Oil prices are surging, shipping lanes are threatened. The global economy is on edge. So what happens if the U.S. decides to break that blockade? This is where the ground forces come in. Instead of fighting Iran at sea, the U.S. could strike the source, landing Marines along the coastline, dropping paratroopers deep into strategic positions, taking control of missile sites, destroying launch platforms, eliminating Iran's ability to control the strait from land. And then there's Keshem Island, a place that looks like a peaceful tourist destination, but hides something far more dangerous beneath the surface, deep underground. Iran has built what many are calling a missile city, a vast network of tunnels stretching thousands of feet, packed with weapons. Anti-ship missiles, strike systems, hidden launch sites, all positioned perfectly to dominate the Strait of Hormuz. If the U.S. takes that island, it doesn't just weaken Iran. It blinds it. It strips away one of its most powerful tools, and suddenly, the blockade collapses. But that's just one path. There's another possibility, one that's quieter, but just as deadly. Instead of a full-scale invasion, the U.S. could unleash special operations deep inside Iran, precision missions, targeted strikes, capturing high-value individuals, destroying critical infrastructure, operations designed not to occupy, but to cripple. We've seen this playbook before. Fast, silent, devastating. But here's the problem. Even that might not be enough. Because this conflict isn't just about territory, it's about power, leverage, survival, which brings us back to Karg Island. Because taking it could trigger something much bigger. Imagine this. U.S. forces land, secure the island, cut off oil exports. Within days, Iran's economy begins to collapse. Revenue dries up. Military funding weakens. Internal pressure builds, and suddenly, the regime is fighting for its life. Not against the US but from within. Because history shows us something very important. When regimes lose money, they lose control. And when they lose control, everything starts to fall apart. But even that isn't the most extreme scenario, that there's one option that stands above all others. One move that would change the entire balance of power overnight. Entering Iran and taking control of its nuclear assets. This is the most dangerous possibility. Because it's not a quick strike. It's not a simple mission. It's deep penetration into heavily defended territory, hundreds of miles inland, into fortified sites like Natanz and Isfahan, locations built specifically to survive attacks, underground bunkers, reinforced facilities, protected by layers of defense. To take those sites, you don't just need soldiers, you need time, control, and the ability to hold ground under constant threat. But if it succeeds, the payoff is massive. Because Iran's nuclear program isn't theoretical anymore, that it's close. Very close. Experts believe Iran has already enriched uranium to levels just below weapons grade, meaning the final step could happen quickly. And that's the red line. So imagine US forces securing those sites, seizing enriched uranium, dismantling the infrastructure, eliminating the threat entirely. That wouldn't just change this conflict. It would reshape the entire region. But it would also come at a cost. Because once American boots are on Iranian soil, there's no going back. This becomes a full-scale war. Missiles, drones, counterattacks, regional escalation, and potentially something even bigger, because Iran won't stand alone, and the ripple effects would be global. Energy markets, alliances, security dynamics. Everything shifts. And yet, despite all the risks, the pieces are moving into place. Troops are deploying. Defenses are activating. Signals are being sent. And the world is watching as the next phase begins to take shape. Because what happens next won't just impact Iran. It won't just affect the United States. It will define the future of the entire Middle East, maybe even the world. And the most shocking part? This could all happen faster than anyone expects. Because once the first boots hit the ground, everything changes, and there's no turning back. And just when it feels like the situation couldn't escalate any further, there's another layer to this story that almost nobody is talking about. Because while the world is focused on troops, ships, and potential landing zones, something much quieter is already happening behind the scenes. A shadow war. One that doesn't make headlines. One that doesn't wait for permission. And one that could decide the outcome of everything before the first Marine even steps onto Iranian soil. Because if history has taught us anything, it's this: before the invasion begins, the battlefield is already being shaped. Right now, intelligence networks are likely operating deep inside Iran. Not in uniform, not visible, but active, mapping targets, tracking movements, identifying weaknesses, and most importantly, preparing the ground for what comes next. Because modern warfare isn't just about firepower. It's about information, control, precision. And if the United States is planning any kind of ground operation, then the groundwork is already being laid. Quietly, carefully, relentlessly. And Iran knows it. That's why paranoia inside the regime is reaching new levels. Internal crackdowns are intensifying. Communications are being restricted. Movement is being monitored. Because the biggest threat right now might not be outside Iran. It might be inside. Spies, defectors, sleeper cells, all of them capable of turning the tide at the worst possible moment. And if that happens, the impact would be devastating. Because wars aren't just won on battlefields. They're won through collapse, from within. And that brings us to something even more dangerous. Something that could ignite this entire situation overnight. A trigger. Because right now, everything is on edge. All it takes is one incident, one miscalculation, one strike that goes too far, and suddenly, the situation explodes. Imagine this. A US reconnaissance mission is detected. Iran responds. Shots are fired. Within minutes, retaliation begins. Airstrikes, missile launches, naval engagements. And just like that, the conflict moves from tension to full-scale war. No announcements, no warnings, just action. Because in a situation this volatile, there is no slow escalation anymore, only sudden ignition. And if that ignition happens, Those 6,000 troops currently positioning near Iran won't be waiting. They'll move. Fast. Decisive. Overwhelming. Because speed is everything. The first 48 hours would define everything that follows. Air superiority would be established. Key targets would be hit. Command structures disrupted. And then, the ground phase begins. And this is where things get truly unpredictable. Because Iran is not Iraq. It's not Afghanistan. It's bigger, more complex, more prepared, with terrain that can turn even the most advanced military operation into a nightmare. Mountains, urban density, hidden infrastructure, and a military that has spent years preparing specifically for this moment. A defensive war, on its own soil, that changes everything. Because invading is one thing, holding ground is another. And Iran knows exactly how to make that difficult. Guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run attacks, improvised defenses, constant pressure, designed to stretch resources, drain momentum, and increase the cost of every step forward. But here's where the equation shifts again. Because the United States isn't just relying on conventional warfare. It's bringing something else into play. Overwhelming technological dominance. Surveillance from above. Real-time battlefield data. Precision targeting systems. Drones that never sleep. Aircraft that strike without warning. This isn't warfare from 20 years ago. This is something entirely different. And it gives the US an edge that few nations can match. But even with that advantage, there's a reality that cannot be ignored. No war goes according to plan. Unexpected resistance, hidden threats, sudden shifts. All of it can change the course of events in an instant. And that's what makes this situation so dangerous. Because both sides are preparing for the worst. And when both sides prepare for the worst, the outcome is rarely controlled. It's explosive, unpredictable, and often far bigger than anyone intended. But there's one more factor that could change everything. And it's not military. It's political. Because behind every move, every deployment, every warning, there's pressure, global pressure, allies watching closely, adversaries calculating their next move, and leaders making decisions that could define their legacy forever. Because once this crosses a certain line, there's no easy exit, no simple resolution, only consequences, long-term, far-reaching, and impossible to reverse. So the question now isn't just, will there be a ground invasion? It's this. If it starts, where does it end? Because the scale of what's building right now suggests something much bigger than a limited operation, something that could reshape the balance of power across the entire region, and maybe even beyond. And the most unsettling part? We may already be past the point of no return. The troops are moving. The strategies are